Before time ticked, before stars sang, there was only silence, deep, eternal, and untouched. No galaxies, no sky, no breath, only the presence of the Almighty in a realm beyond thought. This silence wasn't empty. It pulsed with divine intent, pregnant with glory untold. Light had not yet been spoken. Space had no meaning. No angel lifted a voice, for none yet existed. It was a sacred stillness, where infinity held its breath, awaiting the Creator's first word. This was not nothingness, but the waiting room of eternity. And in that overwhelming hush, destiny stirred. The silence wasn't absence, it was preparation for war, for wonder, and for the unimaginable future to begin. Beyond the veil of human understanding lies a realm untouched by decay or time, a dimension not bound by hours or seasons. The heavenly realm radiated perfection, bathed in light not born of stars, but flowing endlessly from the glory of God Himself. Towers of crystal rose from golden plains, reflecting colors unseen on earth. Harmony filled the air, celestial melodies echoing through vast halls of eternal peace. Every being moved with purpose, every thought aligned in worship. There was no pain, no shadow, no conflict. It was a kingdom flawless in order, beauty, and truth. This was the dwelling of the Almighty, a sanctuary of light, where divinity ruled and peace reigned supreme. At the heart of this radiant realm stood the throne of God, majestic, unshakable, blazing with unapproachable light. It towered above all creation, encircled by rainbows of living fire and thunders of glory. From it flowed justice, wisdom, and mercy like rivers of light across the heavens. Surrounding the throne were the seraphim and cherubim, their wings aflame, their voices lifting in unending praise. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord. Each angel knew their place, ranked in perfect order, moving with grace, purpose, and obedience. There was no discord, only unity, an eternal symphony of loyalty and love. Divine order ruled, and in its center sat the Creator, sovereign, eternal, and adored. Yet within this perfect harmony, a faint tremor stirred, subtle, almost imperceptible. Amid the blazing choirs and endless worship, a single question formed, unspoken but growing. Whispers began to ripple, soft as shadows beneath sunlight. Why must all serve one will? Why should glory belong to only one? Among the angels, none voiced rebellion, but in the quiet corners of eternity, thoughts shifted. One heart, once full of light, began to wonder, not with reverence, but with pride. The music still soared, the light still blazed, yet something unseen cracked beneath the surface. The first seeds of discontent had been sown, and heaven, though radiant, was no longer untouched by doubt. Among all the heavenly host, one being stood out in brilliance, Lucifer, the morning star. Created with unmatched beauty, wisdom, and power, he radiated like a jewel set in the crown of heaven. His face shone with the light of dawn, his voice carried like rushing waters, and his very presence inspired awe among angels. Robes of fire and precious stones adorned him, and his wings stretched wide in majesty. Appointed as the guardian of God's glory, Lucifer walked among the fiery stones nearest the throne. He was not merely an angel. He was heaven's masterpiece, the pinnacle of divine craftsmanship, entrusted with honor no other had ever known. Lucifer, the morning star, was more than beautiful. He was brilliance itself, a living embodiment of divine light. Light danced through him, not just upon him, as if dawn itself rose wherever he moved. Wisdom flowed from his lips like crystal rivers, profound and flawless, beyond the grasp of lesser beings. Appointed as heaven's chief musician, his voice wove harmonies that filled the cosmos, melodies so pure they stirred the very foundations of creation. With every note, the heavens shimmered. He was the leader of worship, the keeper of sacred sound, and the one through whom glory was reflected back to God. Lucifer was heaven's dawn, radiant, wise, and adored. All of heaven admired Lucifer. Wherever he went, angels paused, not to worship him, but to marvel. His presence stirred inspiration. His voice commanded reverence. He led choirs with unmatched grace, his wings gliding through sanctuaries of light. He stood closest to the throne, robed in beauty no other possessed. And though he gave glory to God, a quiet spark lit within him. Why am I not the center? He wondered. Why must I reflect glory when I shine with it? Admiration from others became intoxicating. His heart, once pure, began to cradle silent dreams, dreams not of serving, but of rising higher. Awe remained on his face, but pride now stirred behind his eyes. Heaven loved Lucifer deeply. The angels looked upon him with admiration, not envy. He was a brother, a leader, a reflection of God's glory. The Father's favor rested upon him like a crown of light, his masterpiece, his cherished creation. Lucifer's melodies stirred joy in the hearts of angels and brought serenity to the courts of heaven. When he approached the throne, the light around him seemed to grow warmer, as if creation itself smiled. God had poured beauty, wisdom, and purpose into him without measure. He was not merely favored, he was beloved. And in that sacred love, heaven believed he would always remain faithful. But love unguarded can invite ruin. In the midst of heaven's glory, God conceived a sacred plan, one hidden even from the highest angels. A new creation, unlike anything before, was to be formed, fragile, finite, yet bearing the very image of God. Humanity, not made of fire or light like the angels, but of dust and breath, mortal, yet chosen. To them, God would give authority, purpose, and something even the angels had never received, free will. They would walk with God, not as servants, but as children. Heaven listened in silent awe, as whispers of this mystery echoed across eternity. A creation so loved, so honored, it would challenge the balance of heaven itself. As God's plan unfurled, a murmur of confusion spread through the heavenly ranks. Angels, accustomed to their perfection and purpose, struggled to grasp the idea of this new creation. How could beings made of dust and frailty hold such a sacred place? Why them? They asked, why not us? The thought of humanity, with free will, capable of choosing love or rejection, stirred unease. How could such fragile creatures possess the authority to reflect God's image? The angels' hearts, once united in harmony, now felt a stir of uncertainty. Their perfect order, their unquestionable place, was being questioned by this mysterious and seemingly insignificant creation. A subtle dissonance began to form. In the stillness of heaven, Lucifer's thoughts began to churn, darker than before. He watched the plan unfold, his heart heavy with disbelief. Why should these fragile beings, made of dust and bound by time, be loved so greatly? He, the morning star, radiant and eternal, had been entrusted with honor beyond measure. But these new creatures, so fleeting, would be given the freedom to choose, the chance to walk with God. The thought gnawed at him. Why should they be honored when they are so much less? He, the bearer of light, had served faithfully, yet here was something new, something lesser, set to claim a place in God's heart. The seed of resentment grew, hidden but powerful. As Lucifer's thoughts festered, the whispers of doubt began to spread like wildfire through the heavenly host. At first, it was just a ripple, a few curious eyes, a hushed conversation between the seraphim, uncertain of this strange plan. But soon, the murmurs grew louder, reaching the ears of a third of the angels. Why should humanity receive such favor? They wondered. What makes them worthy of God's love when we have served faithfully for eons? Discontent simmered beneath their once unwavering devotion. The unity that had defined heaven for so long was beginning to crack. Loyalty, once absolute, began to waver. The first signs of rebellion were not loud, but quiet and insidious, echoing in the hearts of those who had followed Lucifer's lead. It began as a whisper, carried on the winds of heaven. Lucifer, once the epitome of grace and loyalty, now voiced his doubts to a select few. Why must we bow to this plan, he asked, his words wrapped in seeming concern. Why should we serve a creation less than us, when we have known nothing but perfection? These thoughts were not loud, but they were powerful, like seeds falling on fertile soil. As time passed, Lucifer's whispers turned into bold declarations. He gathered the discontented angels around him, painting a picture of a new order, one where their greatness would be acknowledged, not diminished. "We are the bearers of light, the true children of God," he argued. "Why should we remain in his shadow, while these mortals rise in his favor?" His voice, once a song of worship, now carried the weight of rebellion, challenging heaven's eternal harmony. And with each word, the divide between loyalty and defiance deepened. The birth of rebellion was no longer silent. It was a cry that rang through the heavens, shaking the very foundations of divine order. The echo of Lucifer's rebellion tore through heaven like a storm, and soon, the bonds that once united the angels began to fray. Those who had stood by him, his closest allies, the ones who had praised and adored him, now found themselves caught in the rift. Some, swept away by his words, followed him into the darkness, questioning their loyalty to God. Had they been serving faithfully all this time, only to be overlooked? Others, still holding on to their love for God, felt a deep, aching betrayal. The angels who had once worshipped together, side by side, now found themselves torn apart, standing against one another. Friendships that had been forged in eternal unity were now severed by doubt and pride. The air was thick with sorrow and division, loyalties were tested, and hearts, once pure, now carried the weight of betrayal. Those who had loved Lucifer now questioned everything. Could they trust him, or had his rebellion stained their souls forever? The heavens, once a sanctuary of love and peace, trembled under the emotional strain of broken trust and shattered bonds. Lucifer, now consumed by ambition, boldly presented a new vision, a new order where freedom would reign and self-exaltation would replace servitude. "Why submit when you can rule?" he whispered to those disillusioned by heaven's hierarchy. He painted a world where angels were free to follow their own desires, to seek glory not through submission, but through their own strength. "We are powerful enough to shape our destiny," he promised, "no longer shadows, but rulers of our fate." His words stirred hearts, offering the illusion of liberation, of greatness. But in this promise of freedom, a darker truth lurked. Self-rule would come at the cost of unity, love, and heaven itself. As Lucifer's vision spread, the tension in heaven thickened. The angels, once united in unwavering loyalty, now stood at a crossroads. They could feel the weight of a choice before them. Follow Lucifer into this new order of self-rule, or remain in the light of God's perfect plan. Suspicion and fear rippled through the ranks. What would happen if they refused? Loyalty to the Creator was deeply rooted, but the allure of freedom, of power, was irresistible. The whispers grew louder, and the lines between friend and foe blurred. The angels knew that one decision would forever alter their place in heaven. In the silence that followed, the weight of treason hung heavy. Choices had to be made, and heaven would never be the same again. Amid the rising tension, one figure stood unwavering, Michael, the Archangel. As leader of the heavenly host, Michael was the embodiment of loyalty, courage, and strength. With his mighty wings outstretched, he towered above the angels, his armor gleaming like polished silver, reflecting the light of heaven. His eyes burned with divine purpose, resolute in his mission to uphold the will of God. Michael had always been a protector, a warrior in service to the Creator, but now his role was even more critical. As Lucifer's rebellion threatened the harmony of heaven, Michael gathered those loyal to God, calling them to stand firm. "We will not be swayed," he declared, his voice strong and unyielding. The Council of the Loyal was born, and under Michael's leadership, the final battle for heaven's future would soon unfold. In the midst of the growing rebellion, God called for a secret council, gathering heaven's most trusted and steadfast archangels. Michael, the resolute leader; Gabriel, the messenger, swift and wise; Raphael, the healer, filled with compassion and strength; and others, who had remained loyal to the divine will, stood in solemn assembly. In the stillness of the sacred meeting, God spoke with deep gravity. His voice echoed in the hearts of all present, a reminder of their purpose and the sacred trust they carried. Heaven is at a precipice. God said. The choice is before my creation, loyalty or treason. Stand firm, for the fate of all eternity lies in this hour. The weight of God's words settled over them, for they knew that the coming conflict would not just shape heaven's future, but the very fabric of existence itself. The council erupted into urgent debate, each archangel wrestling with a choice that weighed heavy on their hearts. Michael, ever steadfast, spoke first. Lucifer must be confronted, he said, his voice unwavering. His rebellion threatens the very order of heaven. To allow it to fester would be to dishonor the Creator's will. Gabriel, more hesitant, countered, "But what if there is a chance for redemption? Lucifer was once the brightest among us. Could we not reach him before it's too late?" Raphael, torn between compassion and duty, looked to the others. He was beloved, but now his pride blinds him. Perhaps redemption is not possible. Tension hung thick in the air. Confrontation or redemption. Each path held its own peril, and each archangel knew the stakes were nothing less than the survival of heaven itself. The fate of Lucifer, and perhaps of all creation, depended on their next decision. The debate in the council grew heated, each side reflecting the heart-wrenching tension between justice and mercy. Michael stood firm, his voice edged with the weight of righteousness. "Justice must prevail," he said. "Lucifer's pride and rebellion cannot go unchecked. If we allow him to defy God, what does that say about heaven's order? Justice is not only a right, it is our duty to preserve the truth." His words were like a blade, sharp and unyielding. But Gabriel's voice, though softer, carried the heavy burden of compassion. Mercy is what God showed us when we fell short," he pleaded. "Lucifer still bears the image of the Creator. Could we not extend a hand to him, as God once did for us?" The emotional contrast was palpable. Michael, standing resolute for justice, believing that to allow rebellion would tear heaven apart. Gabriel, driven by the hope that love could still reach even the furthest heart, begged for mercy, knowing the cost of forgiveness was sometimes greater than punishment. The council was divided, torn between the painful truth of justice and the delicate hope of mercy. Each angel felt the weight of heaven's future in their hearts, struggling to decide which path would truly save them all. Heaven, once a realm of peace and harmony, now trembled with the sounds of war. The angels, divided by Lucifer's rebellion, took their sides. The loyalists, led by Michael, stood firm in their devotion to God's will, their wings spread wide as they prepared for battle. On the other side, Lucifer's followers, once beloved companions, now stood as enemies, their eyes filled with defiance and anger. The clash was unthinkable, war in paradise. The very air seemed to crackle with energy, as once sacred bonds were shattered. Cries of rage and sorrow echoed through the heavens. It was no longer a realm of light. It had become a battlefield, where the future of all creation hung in the balance. The celestial battle erupted in a storm of unimaginable fury. Swords of pure light clashed in midair, creating blinding flashes that lit up the heavens. Thunderous roars echoed as archangels and rebels collided, their wings beating like the fury of storms. Flames danced across the sky, igniting the heavens in a fiery fury, casting shadows of chaos over once immaculate clouds. Each strike sent shockwaves through the realm, shattering the peace that had once reigned. The angels, now warriors, fought not just for their survival, but for the very soul of creation. In the heart of heaven, the battle raged on, celestial, violent, and eternal, as the very fabric of paradise was torn apart. The heart of the celestial battle was not just one of light versus darkness, but of unbearable emotional pain. Angels who had once stood side by side, brothers and sisters in divine purpose, now faced each other as enemies. Michael's eyes, filled with sorrow, locked with Lucifer's, but the love they once shared was now twisted by betrayal. Every strike carried the weight of memories, of shared laughter, unity, and worship. Lucifer, once the brightest, now a force of destruction, fought against those he had called family. The pain of brothers fighting brothers, of angels turned foes, echoed louder than any clash of swords. Heaven itself wept, torn apart by the agony of lost bonds and shattered trust. The first deathless war was a battle unlike any before it, fought not with blood, but with will and glory. No mortal wound could be inflicted, yet the stakes were far higher. Souls were torn apart, faith shattered. Each angel fought not for survival, but for their belief in the future, their vision of heaven's true order. Lucifer, with his burning pride, clashed against Michael, steadfast in his devotion to God. The war was a test of hearts, of devotion, of the very essence of their beings. It wasn't the flesh that bled, but the spirit. The fight was for control, for glory, and for the soul of all creation itself. In a final thunderous clash, Michael stood unwavering, his sword of light cutting through the storm of rebellion. Lucifer, once the morning star, radiant and powerful, now fell before him, his pride shattered, his vision undone. The battle had drained him, and as Michael's strike cleaved through the darkness, Lucifer's hopes crumbled. With a heartbroken gaze, Michael knew what must come next. The morning star, now fallen, was cast out of heaven, a third of the angels following him, their wings dimmed by betrayal. As they tumbled from paradise, the heavens wept, and the once brilliant light of Lucifer faded into the abyss, leaving a void in heaven's heart, forever scarred by the fall. What was once heaven's most glorious light now lay in ruins. Lucifer, the morning star, who had been the epitome of beauty and grace, now stood as a shadow of his former self. His once radiant form, full of wisdom and splendor, was twisted by his pride into something unrecognizable, ugly and broken. The angels who had once revered him now turned away in horror, their hearts heavy with betrayal. Heaven's perfect harmony was shattered. What was meant to be eternal glory had turned to shame. The once brilliant realm, bathed in divine light, now carried the scars of rebellion, its beauty marred, its peace lost forever in the wake of Lucifer's fall. With Lucifer's fall, a cosmic shift shattered the heavens. The light that had once filled the realm with warmth and radiance was snuffed out, leaving behind an oppressive, suffocating darkness. Where brilliance had reigned, now only shadows clung to the edges of heaven, consuming the sacred space. The beauty of the divine light was replaced with an emptiness that reverberated through the cosmos. Stars that had once danced in harmony now flickered weakly, as if mourning the loss. The void, born from pride and rebellion, spread like ink across the fabric of creation, marking the birth of darkness in a universe that had once been defined by light. As Lucifer fell, his transformation began, not just in form, but in soul. The once glorious archangel, adorned in radiance, became something darker, more sinister. His once beautiful wings, now tattered and blackened, curled inward like the corruption within him. His eyes, filled with divine wisdom, now burned with rage and spite. The name Lucifer faded, replaced by the title Satan, a symbol of rebellion and defiance. His heart, once full of love, turned cold, consumed by bitterness and vengeance. The light that had once defined him was forever extinguished, leaving only a hollow shell, driven by hatred and a thirst for destruction, a being unrecognizable, twisted by the pride that had brought his fall. The aftermath of the war left heaven fractured, its once perfect harmony shattered. The celestial realm, once filled with the angelic choir's pure, harmonious voices, now stood in haunting silence. The skies, once alive with the music of praise, were now still, as if mourning the loss of so many. Angels who had fought valiantly now wept, their wings tarnished by the battle. The beauty of the heavens felt forever tainted, a scar etched deep into the soul of creation. The wounds of heaven, both visible and unseen, remained, a silent reminder of betrayal, division, and the irreparable damage caused by pride. The echoes of lost love and trust lingered in the stillness. The emotional toll on Michael and the remaining angels was unbearable. Michael, the leader, stood amidst the ruins of heaven, his heart heavy with sorrow and guilt. His once unwavering faith now wavered as he faced the devastating cost of the battle. His beloved brothers had become enemies, and the loss of Lucifer, a once cherished companion, felt like an irreparable wound. The other angels, loyal and true, struggled with their grief. The pain of fighting against their own, of witnessing their brethren fall from grace, left deep scars in their spirits. The weight of loss hung over them, each angel carrying the sorrow of shattered unity and the brokenness of heaven. Heaven began its slow, painful healing, but the scars of the war remained, etched deeply into the celestial realm. The radiant light, though restored, no longer shone with the same purity. The once unbroken unity among the angels was now fractured, each one carrying the weight of the past. Whispers of doubt and sorrow echoed in the silence, as angels questioned the fate of their fallen brethren. Could Lucifer ever be redeemed? Was this cosmic conflict a necessary part of God's plan? Though peace returned, it was fragile, and the questions lingered unanswered, like a shadow over the once perfect paradise. The healing was real, but the scars would never fade. God's judgment fell, but it was not without sorrow. The Creator, who had once embraced Lucifer as the brightest and most beloved, now stood as the righteous judge, casting him and his followers out of heaven. The weight of the decision was unbearable, even for God. His heart, filled with boundless love, had witnessed the rebellion of one he had cherished, and the consequences were grave. There was no joy in his judgment, only deep, unspoken grief. The beauty of heaven, now marred by betrayal, left God to watch as his creation, so perfect, was forever scarred. His sorrow was as infinite as his justice, a balance no one could fathom. After the fall, Satan and his followers were cast into the abyss, a dark, desolate dimension, where time and space lost all meaning. This prison was not of flesh, but of pure chaos, an endless void, swirling with torment and disarray. No light could penetrate its depths, and no sound could escape. The once proud angels, now twisted by their rebellion, were locked away in eternal confinement, their wings folded in despair. The abyss, a dimension of brokenness, became their eternal home, a place where their pride and defiance would be their only company. The lock was final, and with it, the last remnants of heaven's peace were shattered. As Satan and his followers were cast into the abyss, the concept of hell took form, a place where darkness reigned and light could not penetrate. It was the outermost realm, a vast expanse of endless night, where the very fabric of creation unraveled. This was a prison, not of stone, but of despair, anguish, and isolation. Hell was the antithesis of heaven, void of hope, love, or mercy. The outer darkness stretched endlessly, where torment was unceasing, and silence screamed louder than any cry. It was a realm birthed from pride and rebellion, a place where souls, lost and broken, would endure the eternal consequences of their defiance against the divine. God sealed Satan and his followers in the abyss, locking them away in the outer darkness with a finality that seemed unbreakable. Yet there was a quiet sorrow in the sealing, a hint of mercy even in judgment. The prison, though eternal, was not forever. God's justice was firm, but his love still lingered. The gates of the abyss would hold, but only for a time. Though Satan and his legions were cast out, God's promise of redemption remained, even for them. The sealing was not an end, but a pause, an endless waiting for a moment that only God could foresee. The ultimate reckoning had been set in motion, but the final chapter was yet to come. Amid the silence that followed the sealing, a chilling prophecy echoed through the realms. He will return. These words, uttered in heaven before the fall, now carried a weight far heavier than before. The prophecy spoke of a future, one veiled in mystery, where Satan would rise once more to challenge the divine order. The angels, forever scarred by the war, shuddered at the thought. How could this be? The abyss had been sealed, yet the promise of his return hung like a storm on the horizon. It was a terrifying reality, one that spoke of an eventual reckoning and the unyielding persistence of rebellion, destined to resurface in the fullness of time. Heaven, though scarred, now awaited in a tense, uneasy silence. The war was over, but the calm that followed was fraught with anticipation. The angels, their wings still heavy with sorrow, knew that the next chapter of creation was about to unfold. Earth. The prophecy loomed, the promise of something new, yet unknown. Would it bring redemption or another fall? Would humanity be the answer to the wounds heaven had suffered? The heavens were still, as if holding their breath. The realm of light, now weary and burdened, braced for the arrival of earth, a realm where free will would reign and choices would shape the future. The next step was coming, and none could foresee what it would bring. With a whisper of divine will, God began the creation of the physical realm, setting in motion a masterpiece that would be both beautiful and fragile. The heavens above, once untouched by time, began to stretch and form, stars igniting in a symphony of light. Mountains rose from the depths of the void, oceans carved their paths, and skies filled with the promise of life. Every element, every detail, was crafted with purpose, yet the weight of this creation bore heavily on God's heart. It was not just the birth of a new world, it was the beginning of a journey, where free will and choices would define the fate of all who would dwell there. The angels watched in awe as God, with a tender yet powerful breath, infused life into the lifeless dust. What once was a mere collection of earth now stirred with divine essence. Man was born. His form, shaped in God's own image, lay still, waiting for the spark of life. Then, with a soft sigh, the Creator breathed into him, and the man's chest rose in a first, conscious breath. Heaven stood silent in reverence. This creation, so fragile yet filled with potential, was a testament to God's love and vision. The angels marveled, for they had witnessed the beginning of a new chapter, a realm of free will, where man would rise or fall. In the deepest silence of the abyss, a faint stirring broke the stillness. Darkness, once all-consuming, seemed to pulse with a new energy. Deep in the void, Satan's eyes flickered open. The abyss, a place of torment and isolation, had held him captive. Yet now, the very air seemed to tremble. His thoughts, once clouded by rage and regret, sharpened with a growing awareness. A new chapter was unfolding above. Humanity had been created, and a terrifying question arose. Was this creation his next battleground? The prophecy had not been forgotten. Satan's mind twisted with dark ambition. He would return, and this time he would not be cast down so easily. The first war in heaven changed everything. An eternal battle between light and darkness, brother and brother, glory and ruin. But even in the midst of destruction, there is hope, for the Creator's plan continues to unfold. As we've seen, every chapter holds suspense, every moment is crucial. This is just the beginning of a grand story, one that echoes through time. If you're captivated by these timeless tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Our journey through the Bible's most profound mysteries is far from over. Stay with us for the next revelation.